So let's say you have to read an incredibly long email from your boss that you have to finish before the big meeting starts in 10 minutes. Or your
All to the borders, Vermonters, come down with your breeches of deerskin and jackets of brown, with your red woolen caps and your moccasins. Come to the gathering summons of trumpet and drum. Come down with your rifle, let gray wolf and fox howl on in the shadow of primitive rocks. Let bear feed securely from pig pen and stall. Here's two-legged game for your powder and ball. And cheer, cheer, the Green Mountaineer. And cheer, cheer, the Green Mountaineer. On the south came the Hessians, our land to police, and armed for the battle while canting of peace. On our east came the British, the red-coated band, to hang up our leaders and eat up our land. Oh, all to the rescue, for Satan shall work. No gain for the legions of Hampshire and York. They claim our possession, the pitiful knaves. The tribute we pay shall be prisons and graves. And cheer, cheer, the Green Mountaineer. And cheer, cheer, the Green Mountaineer. We owe no allegiance, we bow to no throne. Our ruler is law, and the law is our own. Our leaders themselves are our own fellow men, who can handle the sword and the scythe and the pen. Hurrah for Vermont, for the land that we till must have sons to defend her from valley and hill. Our vow is recorded, our banner unfurled. In the name of Vermont we defy all the world. And cheer, cheer, the Green Mountaineer. And cheer, cheer, the Green Mountaineer. And cheer, cheer, the Green Mountaineer.
Hello everybody. We learned yesterday that the inflation in Canada is 4.4%, and that's because of the Trudeau government and the Bank of Canada. As you know, the Trudeau government created the biggest deficit in our history, more than $350 billion, without increasing our taxes. So the Bank of Canada financed that deficit by creating money out of thin air. When you increase the money in circulation and the production of goods and services is the same, you have inflation. Inflation is always because of our monetary policy. So that inflation is a hidden tax. That's the worst of all taxes, because you can have the same amount of money in your pockets, but you're not able to buy the same amount of goods and services because prices are going up. So you are poor, your standard of living is going down, and your purchasing power is going down. We need to stop that. So the best way to do that is to balance the budget, and also to be sure that the Bank of Canada won't be able to create money out of thin air by telling the Bank of Canada, by giving to the Bank of Canada an inflation target of 0%. That's the position of the People's Party of Canada, and we want to work for you and with you to be sure that you will always preserve your purchasing power. So, thank you very much. Have a nice day.
When there's nothing left but the fire in my chest and the air that fills my lungs, I'll hold my tears and trade my years for a glimpse at kingdom come. On the other side of misery, there's a world we long to see. The the strife we share will take us there to relief and sovereignty. Oh my God, we'll have our home again. By God, we'll have our home. By blood or sweat, we'll get there yet. By God, we'll have our home. In our own towns, we're foreigners now. Our names are spat and cursed. The headline smack of another attack, not the last and not the worst. Oh, my fathers, they look down on me. I wonder what they feel to see their noble sons driven down beneath a coward's heel. Oh, my God, we'll have our home again. By God, we'll have our home. By blood or sweat, we'll get there yet. By God, we'll have our home. The road is dark, the way is lost. My eyes, they strain to see. I struggle forth to find a friend to light the way for me. Oh, brothers, can you hear my voice, or am I all alone? If there's no fire to guide my way, then I will start my own. Oh, my God, we'll have our home again. By God, we'll have our home. By blood or sweat, we'll get there yet. By God, we'll have our home. Oh, by God, we'll have our home again. By God, we'll have our home. By blood or sweat, we'll get there yet. By God, we'll have our home.
Well, a good lunch hour to you. How are you doing? Having a good one. There's some interesting things afoot. The first thing I'll address is Maxime Bernier's statement on inflation and the People's Party current position on how to resolve the monetary crisis. I think this is an excellent example of why the People's Party should consider a leadership convention, because there's other ideas, and I know I'm not the only person that has other ideas. I mean, some people are talking about a return to the legal tender system. There's a guy, Bill Abrams, that did a lot to put a lot of work out about that. But I think we have to revisit this monetary issue, because the thing that holds us back from having our country is that inflation has been on the rise since the 1970s, and that's when we got rid of the legal tender currency, which is where the government would spend money into existence. They were the sole printers of the money. They were the sole creators of the money. And then they would spend it into existence whenever they were building an infrastructure project, like, say, a bridge or the Trans-Canada Highway. And the way that they do it now is they take out loans from private banks to fund this, which is why the deficit, anyways, it's a whole. So I think the position that we should take is we should welch on our debts as a country, and we should introduce a new monetary system. I think that's the most coherent way to replace the old system. Now, obviously, the current monetary system has its agents and enforcers and courts and governments, but the new monetary system could very easily have that as well. And I think really that's kind of an idea that I only know a little portion of, and I would want more people that are more. Anyways, the point is this. This is just uh, me dealing with a lot of new pressures that are going on. I mean, the the society is becoming so tyrannical, um, that we're really out of options, but we're so uh, disconnected, uh, and discombobulated. And I think, um, like, people have to realize that the machine like breaks people, you know, and part of how, like, what people think is normal, like the old normal, that wasn't normal either, you know. Um, it it's different levels of brainwashing. So it's like when I see people saying, oh, we want to go back to the old normal, and it's like you want to go from one form of brainwashing to the form of brainwashing that you're comfortable with, um, and it's just not it's not going to fly, you know, because they control both systems, which is why you really do have to have like a ground up approach to redesigning government and rebuilding, um, the system. And more importantly, you have to have uh, tighter measures on the type of people that are allowed to participate in government. You need to have almost a police force to police the government. You know, it's but that's supposed to be the people. There's there's so many problems and so little time to fix them. Um, I did do a lot of work to try and lay out what I thought a good plan uh, was for that kind of stuff, and I constantly got shot down. You know, like, I was talking about, like, we really should start building a militia, and this became like a very heated uh, aspect of things, because the minute you say militia, I guess some people think, like, because when I think militia, I think about those guys in Michigan, you know, that just go and do exercises with like their 20 or 30 guys from their neighborhood, and they do that for a weekend. I don't understand what's so terrifying about that. um it's people, because I think good men have a natural inclination to want to protect their country in some way. Like, I always thought about it. I never joined the military because I recognized the Afghan war was bullshit, and a whole bunch of things about the society were totally broken to begin with. But I do have respect for the structure and kind of an understanding of how to properly utilize that. Um, it would be a lot easier to have these type of deep level discussions about how to restructure the society in person. um, you know but the reality is that we are all spread out across this country, and so there's not a lot that we can do uh, to kind of resist the system, or wake people up or anything else like that. And I mean, I have some ideas. Like I was thinking, it'd be really smart to get a bunch of people together with cans of red spray paint, and wherever they have signs that are saying, a vaccine passport and ID is required. Like wherever a sign like that is, just do like a big swastika. You know, because like if that started happening, maybe more people would start to kind of connect the dots, as to what's happening in the society. And again, that's not a violent action. Sure, you might get some type of fine, but you could also argue political expression. Like I paid $400 donation to the Poppy Fund for spray painting on the cenotaph. uh, you know, I'm happy to give that donation. It's not the point is when I was talking about building a militia, these people, they they know that there's a section of the criminal code, which I agree there is, but I also think civil disobedience. I think a militia is nothing other than a peaceful assembly, you know, and I think if we had a real head for optics, and we were on the same page about how to try and do that, like there's weird little operations, like I had I had this vision um, of like a militia dress uniform that's like jeans and hiking boots and a plaid shirt and then a like a denim tunic kind of thing, just like the Canadian tuxedo. But what I always thought to call it was the Canadian Civilian Defense Force, the CCDF, right? That's what I was working on before I came in contact with that other group. Um, I really enjoyed the lyrics in that Diagonal on anthem. I think the name's a little bit silly. I mean, I'm not too familiar with the whole premise of it, but I am familiar with the premise of wanting to try and start a new country and replace kind of this broken system of government with something new. Um, and I do like the idea of crossing the Canadian and the American experience into having one cohesive country for North America. Um, and I, wrote uh, a constitution for that is written in a way that it could be understood by all of the people that are currently practicing as lawyers in both countries. Um, it's just a question of whether or not there would be enough public sentiment to push change, right? But I have passed that around to different people, like Peter Downing took a look at it. He said he liked the way it was written. He liked the way that I wrote, which was pretty interesting. Everybody that I know that's read the documents for this Constitution thing, they like it, and so I have to find a way to maybe put it out there. And so, yeah, maybe I'll sell the Constitution for the Republic of the Free West. It's just an idea that I have, right? Is how Canada and America could come together and reset as a new country, and like it would always be understood that the emperor is almost like a joke title. You know, like it's like said like kind of like cheeky, you know, like and but you'll see when you meet my friend Vern, um, the guy who's going to be the native guy who's going to be the emperor, because he's hilarious, right? And he's like red pilled as shit too. There's a lot of red pilled native people actually, um, which is part of why I don't dig too much on like the super like whenever I see people pushing like like this like biological racism ideas and stuff like I don't think those are scientifically correct ideas. I remember arguing with this one chump about it. This guy like speaks with such a lisp, right? Has to be gay. Just too lispy. And I was asking him about epigenetics, right? Like what he knew about epigenetics. And he was like, epigenetics are a Jewish conspiracy. I was just like, all right, you're an idiot. You could, because that's not how that works. And I think that's what happens a lot in the right wing is that there are some people that have like a nefarious agenda, and maybe they're getting some type of monetary compensation for propagating such an agenda. Uh, and I just think there's a lot of bullshit that's floating around. You know, there's a lot of good Canadian people that are obviously like not European in descent, but there's also a lot of shithead immigrants that take advantage of the system and do a lot to make the country worse. You know, so it's a double-edged sword. You know, but the simple fact is that the government is forcing this kind of racial standoff between white Canadians and non-white Canadians. And this is like a thing that if we play into it, it's going to give the government more power. And so I think it's more important to try and have some way to put out a principled position of truth on these issues. Like, so we had recently the National Day for Reconciliation, for Truth and Reconciliation, right? So can we talk about the truth that the government has known about those kids buried at those schools in those unmarked graves since 2015? So the truth of the matter is the government's known about that for a long time. The native communities there have known about it for a long time. Why are we, and in the commission, it makes it clear that these kids died of things like tuberculosis, the Spanish flu, polio, like the people died of those diseases back then. Can we talk about the truth of that? You know, instead, and here's the thing: for all the emotional, like whipping that they're giving to like us quote unquote colonizers for the residential schools, right? All the whipping that the government's just kind of like self-flagellating onto all of us. They're still not doing anything about the water. You know, like there's so many reserves that still don't have fresh drinking water. I feel like, you gotta do something to try and, like, a bunch of trailers just kind of like laying around isn't, I don't know. You got to build something, maybe build something tall for them. I don't know. Like, it's a complex problem, but the approach that the government's currently engaged in is not smart, you know. Like, I think having it so that our justice system flows through something that's connected to the law of peace, which is, you know, worth a read if you have a time. It's it's actually kind of a funny thing because the leftists, right? They're trying to tell Native Americans that their history is that they were like communist tribes, right? But the story of the peacemaker is like literally fascism. Okay, like this guy shows up, he plants a white pine tree as like a symbol of justice, and he reads out this like law of peace. And what he explains to all like he takes one arrow and he breaks it, right? And then he takes six arrows and he puts them together, and he can't. That's literally fascism, but like they're trying to tell the natives that that's communism. That their way, and that's the more sinister thing I think about the way residential schooling was done. You know, like it was definitely not uh, like pulling kids away from their families, and then they lose the languages, and then those languages are starting to die out. And that was like a language that was very nature based, and you know, had a lot of like that's important knowledge that that's getting lost from like the human psyche, you know. And so I think uh, doing some things to do right by the, because I still like in my governing position of things, I would always advocate for doing right by the natives, not by doing like bullshit, you know, not by like making it redonkulous, but like for example, right now, uh, the money that comes out of royalties goes and is distributed to the chief, and then the chief like distributes it out to people on the reserves. Um, Instead, it should just be like, you know, the chief, like, I don't know. I think because a lot of people have a problem with it, where you know the chief is like this guy that has way too much power, and the people there don't have too much freedom, so then they leave the reserve and then they go because they just want to have a good time, and like and then they end up being drunks on the streets of like a city, you know. And so it's like the solution has to somehow involve like fixing that dynamic, you know, because I think that's not a great dynamic. Like, can you imagine if the mayor had control over your paycheck? Like, wouldn't that be Jesus, you know? Wouldn't be wouldn't be a groovy system. So maybe something around there's got to get explored, you know. It's just it's hard, I guess, to get because they call us muñas, right? Muñas it just means newcomers, right? But we could call immigrants muñas, you know, because they're muñas, you know. We're just muñas. Yeah. Having fun, folks. Not really. Not really. It's not really a time for fucking around and shit. You know, I think November 30th that's like the day that all the good cops have to quit the force, you know, because it's like the rest of these cops are going to go along with enforcing all this bullshit. It's just it's a sad state of affairs, you know. I'm not really stoked on it. But yeah, anyways,